All right. Well, yes, thank you for having us, and thanks for the introduction, Jesse. So yes, I'm Erik Day with the DNR, and this is Danielle with Iowa Health and Human Services. And we have this awesome grant program that we've had in place for a long time with the state, and it's managed by HHS, and I provide technical assistance from the DNR side. So we're going to do kind of a shared presentation here, and Daniel's going to start off by discussing the general program.
Yeah, so on the HHS side, it's kind of more the programmatic part of it. So working with the contracts directly with the boards of health and all the fun claims that come in after the fact, and a lot of technical assistance on that side of things. So looking into this, let me see here. There we go. So we're just going to do just a brief overview, program origins, budget activities, and the flexibility. So this program actually came about through Iowa's Groundwater Protection Act. So way back 1987, it was actually established. So the program has been in place in one way, shape, or form since then. So what it is in Iowa code, it actually established a certain amount of the funds from the Groundwater Protection Act goes directly to the activities that's supported in the grant. So nice that that funding is always secured for us through the state code there. So within that, it's the testing, sealing, closure of abandoned wells and cisterns is kind of where it started. And we've been working over the years and kind of expanding the activities that it can cover as well. So, and see a couple points. The eligible counties have to also adopt the standards for private water supply and disposable, so on-site systems as well. So making sure that they are part of that as well. So, and also within that, it requires each county receives the same amount of funds. So some counties have like rural water services, you know, urban versus rural, so different utilizations of the program, but through actual code, every county is allocated the exact same amount. So the protection fund comes from pesticide dealer fees, fertilizer sales, and the pesticide registration fees. So that all comes into the groundwater protection fund, and 2% Iowa DNR, and then of that, the 35 to the HHS for the actual contracts that go up to the counties. So the contracts have been managed through HHS since 2006. And they're actually through the local boards of health. So it's actually the county board of health that we contract with for these services. So, and then the claims submitted through HHS through on-site kind of a software program, Iowa Grants it's called. So we contract, actually working on that right now with FY26 contracts. So there's actually 89 contracts that I get to manage for all of the counties, and then they do the administration, the boots on the ground, working with the property owners and, you know, the contractors and all of that to provide the services. And then the counties will submit the claims through the software back to the state, and then we do the reimbursements quarterly then for each county. So annual budget is kind of changed a little bit over the years. It's been around, 4 to 5 recently, and that's based on the base again of those feeds that come in through the groundwater protection and how much we're able then to kind of divide out evenly between the counties. So there's a total of 99 counties that it's all divided out to. So, and with that, so the program aspects, just kind of a quick overview. Well water testing is a big one, so we do see a lot of that, and kind of the blanketed, for us in Iowa, it's nitrate, bacteria, arsenic, and then some others depending on area and then approvals. So which recently have gone into PFAS and some different things like that as well. So it's the administrative expenses and then the actual cost of the test too. So kind of helping those counties is the administrative part of it. So helping them with offsetting their costs of going out and assisting with these activities. So well pluggings is actual cost up to 700, cisterns for reconstruction 2,000, shock chlorination, and then the well assessment. So those are the things currently that the program covers. So, and we're kind of always out there with different, events and stuff, kind of looking at other options or avenues. One thing that had come up recently in a couple different conversations and events we had was, so my well can't be reconstructed because it's too old. Can I get these funds towards a new well? So we're kind of looking at different things and how we can make that work to better utilize the funds. And the other part of that is training, supplies, and promotional. So this is just a maximum budget per year that is also allocated to assist with other things. So education opportunities for training, supplies, kind of anything that touches the program, or even some on-site stuff too for wastewater. And then promotional. So we had just kind of did a fun email blurb of the counties and asked them for fun ideas just to kind of get some camaraderie going of what they use promotional for. And it was anywhere from billboards to water bottles to one actually created a sticker to put on a tick removal kit that says, "Bad water ticks me off, get your well tested." So, kind of fun things like that. So it's kind of fun just to share that stuff around to get some ideas going for the different counties and things like that. So trying to get some fun engagement in the program. So, and this one, allocation versus expenditures. So we're kind of seeing a bit of a gap there. So actually FY25, we actually increased what we were able to allocate in those different categories to try and help get more of the money spent that are available. So I think that should jump it up. Currently, I just finished third quarter expenditures and we're around 2.3 million so far this fiscal year. And our last quarter was a little shy, being over winter and in Iowa, not as much will get done. But we're looking at fourth quarter ramping up. So hoping to, crest that 3 mark again, maybe a little more. So. And then impacts of reallocation. So reallocation started around 2017, it looks like. I was before my time. I'm fairly new in this position. But the reallocation, since code says that we give the equal amount to each county, some counties, may only spend 5,000 of the 50,000 allocated, where other counties, could spend a lot more. So about halfway through the year, we kind of look at where everybody's at. In counties that have almost expensed everything, we can do a reallocation and ask them what they would like for more funds. So, and actually this last year, we reallocated to 43 counties of our 89 contracts. So a lot of money kind of moving back and forth from those that can't use as much to those. We had quite a few that were over the 100,000 mark. So kind of nice to be able to do that now as well to help kind of get a little bit closer to expending as much as we can out of those funds. So just some examples of what we have seen for reimbursements. So well water tests over 11,000 in FY24, reconstructions, and then a lot of well closures. So kind of fun to see the numbers and that it's doing a lot of good out there on the ground. So. Well water tests, again, just kind of the basics, what we usually end up seeing these. So the nitrate, coliform, arsenic, manganese, and the PFAS is kind of the main ones that we've been testing. And just an overview of how the program kind of evolved. Arsenic being approved, reallocation being approved in 2017. So shock chlorination and well assessment was added in 2019. And 2023, looking at PFAS, gross alpha, and then fluoride also approved. So just trying to keep abreast of everything going on in the environment and kind of getting feedback from the counties and doing the best we can to help everyone out there. So FY25 and beyond, so we had increased the reimbursement rates, trying to maximize the money's being spent. Kind of worked on a marketing toolkit a little bit for the counties to kind of assist with that, getting the word out for water testing and the reimbursements. So we're seeing expenditures, climb a little bit, so getting a little bit closer to fully expending what's available there. So And then the 1.0 FTE was my position that was just created this last year. So that started in January. So this program on the HHS side was kind of split between 4 or 5 different people, all having bits and pieces of the program. And now we're able to actually bring it all into one position. So I get to coordinate and organize all of those. So learning that working with 89 different contracts and different abilities is a lot of fun. So, and then we've been reaching out more, conferences and training, that type of thing. So getting the word out and doing more with the program. So, and let's see, I think this is yours, Erik, where you start in. So communication and yeah. So there you go.
All right. I'll try to raise this up a little bit. Okay. All right. Yeah. So there's other benefits to the program in addition to just helping out the private well owners. So one thing is, getting some additional revenue and work for our well contractors. That's kind of helped to build a little bit more communication and working relationships with those contractors and the DNR and with HHS and just the general public. So it just gets people talking and gets people more involved. It's a great program. One thing we didn't mention is that this program is available to every private well owner. Anyone with a property that has any sort of private well, we try to focus on household private wells, but anyone with a private well, regardless of their income level. So there's no income restrictions. So it's really helpful. All right, so I just wanted to go through more of the kind of statistics on the number of tests done. And this data may vary a little bit from HHS's actual reimbursement data. So I manage the private well tracking system. We just switched over to a new database called the Iowa Well Information System. And so this is where I can keep track of all permits and private wells that are constructed in the state or tested through the private well grants program. And so the data stored in here doesn't necessarily match what was truly submitted for claim and approved. Not that they pretty much approve everything that comes to them, but sometimes the counties may lack on their submittals and stuff. So that's why these numbers might not match up exactly. Anyway, so I kind of just like to show the last 6 years, I guess really the last 5 years, because fiscal year 2025, we were just about halfway through when I pulled this data. So everything's a little bit lower for 2025 that you're about to see. But so yeah, the number of water tests in total that we've done for private wells has been increasing since 2020. So from about 10,000 up to nearly 13,000 tests. And again, these are the total tests that are recorded in the database for all private wells in the state. And most of them qualified for testing. So every now and then, some of them don't qualify because it's a contaminant that we don't have approved through the private well grants program right now. And so that's why we have these 2 separate lines for water tests and water tests that qualifies. Well reconstructions, we do about 200 a year, and that's increasing over the last several years. And we really like to see those done. There's a lot of older wells in Iowa that are, in pits, as we've all been, seen and been talking about today even. But we have a lot of those wells in Iowa, of course. And we have a lot of these large diameter bored wells. I call them seepage wells, but they're basically like, a well that's 3-foot diameter bored into the glacial till because there's no good aquifer around. And so water just seeps in from little sand and gravel seams in the glacial till. And a lot of those wells, like the 3-foot casing is just above the ground surface, or it's in a pit. And then there's a, tiny, casing sticking out there. So we really try to push to get those reconstructed. So that's probably at least half of where these reconstructions are coming from. Well pluggings, we see quite a bit of well pluggings. Yeah, for about 1,600. It's kind of decreased over the last 5 years, just a little bit. Hard to say why that is. It could just be there's less and less of these wells being found, like these older ones that are just abandoned. But who knows, maybe they'll go up again in the future. And then looking at the actual contaminant data or the chemical data from our water tests. So nitrate tests, we have around 8,000 per year over this time period. And I kind of broke them up by the level, by the detection level. So 0 to 5, 5 to 10, and over 10 milligrams per liter. And looking at it percentage-wise, about 80% of the tests are usually between 0 and 5 milligrams per liter. So, at half of the MCL for public water supplies or less. And then the other 20% are above that with about, 5% or so exceeding the MCL. Most of the ones that have those detections above an MCL are either those bored or seepage wells, just because they're, obviously pulling from a shallow aquifer, or in northeast Iowa, we have a lot of karst geology, so sinkholes and carbonate bedrock that's very close to the ground surface. So all the egg drainage just seeps down into that aquifer, and people, it's very good aquifer as far as water quantity for private use, but there's a lot of nitrates up in the northeast portion of Iowa. As far as bacteria, again, about 8,000 tests a year or more. And looking at it percentage-wise, of all the tests that are in the system for those years, about 75% or so had a positive or had a detection for coliform or bacteria. And then for E. coli, a lot of labs, only run this if your bacteria test is positive. So out of all the total E. coli tests that were run, it's like a little less than 5% come back with a detection. And arsenic, we have a lot of kind of hot spots in Iowa where we have arsenic issues, and then it's kind of hit or miss. I know in north central Iowa, we see it a lot in the areas around the Des Moines lobe glaciation, so that the part of the Wisconsin glaciation that is in Iowa. And beneath that, we have a formation called the Lime Creek Formation. And so that's all right, can you hear me? Yeah. Let's keep talking. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, arsenic is prevalent in this one area where we have these high-ranked shale layers, within the Lime Creek Formation, which is kind of alternating layers of shale and limestone. And then also in another spot in the state, it's really odd. There's a lot of arsenic present in Greene County in one particular area around this bend of a particular river. But it's found in the alluvial sands and gravels, and then also in the bedrock wells. And can't really find a correlation to any particular unit there. So it's just kind of odd how it kind of shows up here and there in Iowa. But we're trying to get more counties to test for all of these constituents, not just bacteria and nitrate, because obviously arsenic is a very important contaminant to know if you have an issue with your well. So of all the arsenic tests, about 80% are less than half of the MCL for public water supplies, and then the other 20% are 50% or more, or about 10% are at or above the MCL for arsenic. So it's very important I'm just very glad that we're getting these tests done, because people then, like the counties, tell them what, you may want to get your water treated. Unfortunately, we don't pay for treatment systems right now. That's not part of the grants to counties, or I'm sorry, the private well grants funds, but they can at least pursue treatment options or know what their options are. And so this is newer. We just approved for PFAS testing over the last couple of years. And we don't get a lot of, well, I guess I'll start off by saying PFAS testing is very expensive. So in order to prevent counties from running out of money right away, because people were just probably going to start asking for it, we decided to come up with a way to decide if a well is vulnerable or not. And so what I did was I worked with some of the folks who did our initial PFAS analysis for public water supplies and determining what public wells may be vulnerable. I used a similar criteria based upon all the private wells that we had logged in our database, and kind of came up with a set of criteria that matched that. So then if someone asks the county for a test, the county contacts me, I look up the address, see if it meets one of those criteria, and then if it does, then we approve it. Because it's like $300 to $400 for a test, and then if there's a detection, then they have to run the duplicate, and so then it's $700 to $800. So anyway, of the testing we've done, we have one particular hot spot. There's a town in Lynn County, and it spans Lynn County and Johnson County. It's called Swisher, Iowa, and they are 2 to 3 miles south of an airport that did a lot of firefighter training. And so a lot of the aqueous firefighting foam was used there. And it's pretty apparent that it has seeped down into the bedrock aquifer and traveled down gradient, and this entire town is on private wells, and they're all, 200 to 300 foot wells. So people, thought they'd be safe, but when you have carbonate bedrock, it's pretty easy for your well to get contaminated, even if it's deep based on the depth. It may not have that confining layer present that actually seals off the aquifer. So let's see here. How to get this working? So all these tests over here in eastern Iowa, those are all from that Swisher area. And I did the pie chart just to break up the 25 different constituents for the method 533. So the big ones we see there from the bedrock aquifer are PFOA and PFOS. And those are, of course, correlated with firefighting foam. And then in far eastern Iowa, you'll see those larger, kind of more blue, right there. Those kind of larger blue pie charts. So those have more of a fingerprint associated with surface water, and it makes sense because those are wells that are in the Mississippi alluvial river valley. So we kind of see the same fingerprint for those wells as with the Mississippi River, and that's just general industrial discharge to the river. So there's not one point source for those wells. And then in far northwest Iowa, there's just a couple that had some PFOS and PFOA detections. Those are also in a town that has a small airport that is kind of up gradient, but there's been no investigation done at that site. And there hasn't been as many wells, affected there, as you can see. But anyway, over time, I'm sure we'll start to see some more hot spots pop up as people get more testing done. So.
You're at your spot.
Okay.
You have questions? There you
Okay.
go.
let's see. So can you explain some of the criteria needed to be approved for a PFAS test? Okay. Yeah, so the first way that we looked at it was looking at these industries that have like a certain code associated with their business, and that tells whether or not they may or may not have handled a chemical like PFAS. And so that was one of the initial ones we did, and we just did like any well within a 1 mile radius of one of those. It was from like this EPA ECHO database, something like that, something with an ECHO code, or but it was the same one used for public water supply. The other one was, is it in a large alluvial river valley, like the Mississippi alluvial river valley or the Missouri River Valley, because the surface water in those areas had detections for PFAS. And so if it was in any one of those, then we would approve it. And then the other one that we did was like, is it near any, historical firefighting or fire areas or firefighting areas? So that, and then is it within a certain radius of an airport? Because now we just don't really know when or how many airports have used that firefighting foam in the past for training or whatever. So we kind of just opened it up, and we've expanded that radius out to like, now it's 5 miles away, because we're seeing like the town of Swisher, that's 3 miles away, and those wells are still having detection. So those are the kind of basic criteria that we use. How often can a well owner test? Well, we kind of we say to try to get them to do it at least once a year, or and we'll pay for it for more than once a year. So it just depends. Like if they have their well tested for everything and arsenic, and there's no detections, then we don't, say we probably wouldn't approve it again that same year unless there was some activity with the well, like if they had their well worked on, or if they noticed a discoloration of their water or something like that. But we do allow for reimbursement for multiple times a year if the well needs it, if there's something going on. But not just if someone's paranoid and their water was fine, but they want it tested once a week, we wouldn't pay for that.
Right.
Probably one more, maybe two more.
Okay.
Reimbursement amounts
Yeah,
for
what else?
plugging.
Okay, reimbursement amounts for plugging. Yeah, so those were just updated within the last year, I think. I think for the last fiscal year, those were updated, and they did it based upon the average bill that was submitted as part of a claim. So I think they are. I mean, obviously some wells cost a lot more, or some contractors charge more to plug wells than others. So I think it's adequate. It might not cover, for reconstruction, there are things that we don't pay for. We don't pay for the pressure tank or the plumbing or things that don't protect the groundwater directly. It has to be something that protects the groundwater directly.
Yeah, so when they actually submit a claim, they submit the actual amount as well as captured. And then in the software, it just bounces it back down to what can be reimbursed. So we're able to capture that data point too then, so we can kind of look at if we're on par or not, or if that's a good way to maybe bump up a few categories for more expenses. So.
All right.
All right. Great. Thank you.
Try to keep everybody on time. Thank you, guys.